The Hoppy and Super Rich Show. Hoppy and Super Rich. Only on WNUR 89.3 FM.
This is the Friday Sports Riot. I'm Ryan Hoppy.
And I'm Ryan Stuffridge.
Do you want to call the show? It's 630-403-5200. That's 630-403-5200. And on the Illinois Center for Broadcasting hotline, we have from 670 to score. And also the voice of the Kane County Cougars, Wayne Randazzo. What's up, Wayne?
How you doing, guys?
Good. How has your week been so far?
Week's been fine. Busy as we get ready for baseball season here, going to spring training next week. Kind of get an update on what the 2014 Cougars will look like, and ready to go.
And now, real quick, before we get to some baseball, what is your take on all this nice tropical weather outside in the Chicagoland area?
Well, it's after the winter we've had, certainly worried about what April will look like, and cold nights out on the lakefront at Wrigley Field on the south side and in Kane County, I'm sure. So hoping it stays this warm.
Yes. And now let's begin with the Cubs this year as a team overall. Is there anything positive to look forward to with the team?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to look forward to for 2014 for the Cubs. One of them being what you're going to see from your shortstop. Starlin Castro obviously struggled mightily in 2013, and I predict that he's going to be a candidate for the National League Comeback Player of the Year this year. I think he's going to have a good season and a much better one than he had last year. What you really want to see is how Rick Renteria manages this team, manages the young players, and develops guys like Castro and Anthony Rizzo and whoever else may come along in this 2014 season. And the on-field product, again, wins and losses won't be a big part of the story this year, but you'll be closer and closer to a time when it will start to be.
Now, Anthony Rizzo, he didn't have a very good year last year as far as his batting average was concerned. Do you think he can raise up that batting average and drive in a lot more runs this year?
I don't know if you need him to drive in many more runs. I mean, he still ended up with a pretty good RBI total. He had 65 extra base hits in 2013, which is an impressive number, and he played his Gold Glove caliber first base. You'd like to see the batting average get up there, the on-base percentage certainly. You'd like to see him hit lefties better than he did in 2013, and you'd like to see with Rizzo that, some of it was bad luck last year. The batting average on balls in play, that number was extraordinarily low for Rizzo last year, which means when he was putting the ball in play, he was being caught. And statistically, that's kind of something that's not normal. You usually see that batting average on balls in play much higher than that. So if that just returns to norm, his average should just naturally get better.
Now, do you see Rizzo being on the team in the long run? How good can Anthony Rizzo be?
I think he could be a very good player. I think the power numbers will continue to be steady. Like I said, he plays a Gold Glove caliber first base. I think he'll be fine. I think Cubs fans expect the moon, and he's not going to be what Paul Goldschmidt is in Arizona. He's not going to be a 300-plus hitter. He's not going to be hitting 30 to 40 home runs. You don't need him to be. You don't need every player on your team to be that. You just need steady major league players, and his wins above replacement number was fine. It was right on target with everyday starting players last year, and I think he can get up to all-star level even, but he's not going to be an MVP candidate, but he's a good enough player, and long term he's absolutely a big part of the plan.
Now, we've seen a lot of the guys on the Kane County Cougars who are playing really well, including Javier Baez and some of the other prospects. Do you think that Javier Baez and some of the other prospects will be called up by the end of this year?
Maybe in September you'll get a look at Baez, or you'll get a look at Alcantara. Maybe Bryant, if he has another huge year, he'll be at Double-A to start. There's no reason to rush these guys. There's no reason to get their clock started. And I know Cubs fans would like to see it, but as Theo Epstein said on the Score a couple of weeks ago, we're not in a position to give the fans things that they want. We're in a position to give them that annual feast, as he called it. Getting the whole meal and being able to continue to compete year in and year out. That's what's important to them, and Cubs fans will just have to wait until these guys are ready.
And now, how good of a manager will Rick Renteria be in his first year on the Cubs? What is your take?
That's the $1 million question for them. If he's going to be another bridge gap like Dale Swain was supposed to be. I mean, Dale's tenure was much shorter than they wanted initially. Will he be another 3-3-year guy to get them to be a competitive team before they go get a manager that's going to make them more of a championship level club? Or will Rick Renteria become that guy? Will he evolve as a manager to be the type of guy who's going to be here for many, many years? He's got a lot of the tools that you need. He's laid back. He's consistent. He's bilingual, which is important to the Cubs. And we'll see how he manages in a big market. You know, the toughest thing about managing is not really what your lineup looks like, dealing with the players, making a double switch. It's the intense pressure that you get from the media in Chicago. And I don't know if a lot of people realize, but before the game, before batting practice starts, the manager is bombarded by about 40 to 50 reporters for about 15 minutes, and the same thing after the game, every day. And that's something that's more of a transition for a guy who's managed in the minor leagues, has been a bench coach, to now being a major league manager.
And now let's move on to the White Sox. Do you think that they could be competitive this year with the Tigers and the Royals and some of the other teams in that division, or do you think that they could possibly not have as good of a year as they're expecting?
Well, I don't know what people are expecting of them. I mean, they did lose 99 games last year.
Right.
As far as competing with the Tigers, I mean, that's a big leap from last year. Can they compete for the middle of division and be near Cleveland and near Kansas City? Absolutely. I think that there's a lot there for the White Sox to hang their hats on, and they're rebuilding in a different way. They made so many moves from last July to now to get young major league ready caliber players, and you're going to see those guys on display for the first time this year between Abreu and Adam Eaton and Matt Davidson and Avisail Garcia. And you just hope that they begin to gel as a unit, and Rick Hahn will continue to plug in pieces around them.
And now this is Paul Konerko's last year on the South Side. What type of a year will he have?
You're not going to see him very much. He's not going to get many at bats. He'll be in there against left-handed hit pitching on games where Adam Dunn won't be DHing against lefties. It'll be Konerko. Abreu is going to be the primary first baseman. You might see Paulie get in there a day or two a week at first base. If he makes it past the All-Star break, I'd be surprised. It's very similar to what Kerry Wood was doing a couple of years ago with the Cubs, and Kerry kind of walked off at the middle of the season. I think Konerko will stick it out the whole year, but it's going to be on very limited time. And if you get a couple big hits out of him, that's great. But otherwise, it's a swan song for him and for Adam Dunn in White Sox uniforms. I wouldn't expect either one back in 2015.
Now, with the White Sox, what would you call a good year for this team?
I think if you're floating around 500, if you can even get past the 500 mark, I think that's a good year for them. It's a year that pushes them toward being more in play in 2015. There's a lot of question marks for me in the pitching side of it. Obviously, Chris Sale is going to have a great year. John Danks has looked good this spring. You need him big time to have a good season. Quintana, you hope for the same consistency you've gotten. And then if Eric Johnson is what people say he is, that helps. And then hopefully you get some innings out of the number 5 hole, whether it's Paulino or Hienzo or whomever you end up getting starts out of there. The bullpen's good, which I think will help them in a long season. 80 to 85 wins is a good year for them. And you know, to think that they'll win more than 75. I mean, if they do that, that's at minimum a 12-win improvement from a year ago.
Speaking of Chris Sale, do you think that he could be in contention for a Cy Young Award this year?
I think Sale could be in contention for a Cy Young Award every year. I mean, he's a guy that's going to have, barring injury, he'll give you a lot of innings, he'll strike a lot of hitters out, he'll win a lot of games, and he'll put the White Sox in a position to win every 5th day. You can't ask for much more out of a guy that's as young as he is, a lefty. He's the type of guy who can compete for that award year in and year out.
And now, Wayne, which team will have a better year, the Cubs or the White Sox?
Well, it depends what you mean by better. I mean, who's going to win more games? The White Sox will probably win more games than the Cubs, but who will have a better year determines for me on which organization gets closer to being a championship caliber club in 2015. And that's what remains to be seen, because if you get the contribution you expect to get from Baez at AAA, from Brian at AA, from Almora as he moves up through the system, you get more excited for the 2015 Cubs and the call-ups of all of these guys. That's a great year for this organization. If you trade Jeff Samardzija and get a major return for more prospects, if Mike Olt has a good season, there's differences between what constitutes as a good year for both of these clubs.
Now, before we let you go, where can people find your work online?
Well, 670thescore.com. We got the baseball show now every Saturday morning inside the clubhouse with myself and Bruce Levine. And then King County Cougars games will begin on April 4th, actually April 3rd in the Quad Cities, and the Cougars games are at kccougars.com.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Wayne, and we'd love to have you on again sometime.
Thanks, Wayne.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
And that was Wayne Randazzo of 670 The Score and the voice of the Kane County Cougars.
The Hoppy and Super Rich Show. Hoppy and Super Rich. Only on WNUR 89.3 FM.